conveniently. Thank you. And Patrick is from Sage. Hi, Patrick. And Jennifer from Sage. And who else is from Sage?
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
Kathleen Saylor. Hi. Okay, Patrick, Jennifer, and Kathleen. I'll mute myself.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming. We're excited Mary Ellen asked us to come and talk about publishing with Sage. So I will quickly just kind of introduce each of the three of us and then turn it over to, I think Jennifer will go first, I think. Jennifer comes to us from Sage Journals. And so I'll let each of them explain more about what they do if they like, but she will talk about publishing in journals at Sage. And then Kathleen is here to represent digital publishing opportunities that we have in some really unique resources that both Kathleen and I work on, so I like those resources. And then I will talk about books, book publishing, a little bit about textbooks as well as not textbooks at Sage. And so with that, I will kick it over to Jennifer. Oh, also, yeah, we shared some links with everyone in a Word doc that should have gone out. I tried to post them then in the chat here, and some of them were actually hyperlinked text, and so those links didn't, so that's what you'll see first in the chat. But if you scroll down to the bottom, Kathleen has already added the actual working links plus more, which is pretty awesome. So flip it over to Jennifer, and she will tell us about journals at Sage.
So I'm Jennifer, and thank you all for having us. It's actually really great to be able to talk to you about a little bit about what I do in our journals department as an editor, and also kind of give you a high-level overview of some of the resources that Sage has for authors sort of at all levels, so people new to publishing in journals, but also those with more experience, just giving some extra tips and advice on, finding journals, choosing a journal, and sort of streamlining and making the submission process a little bit easier, and hopefully making peer review a little bit easier. So my technical title is Senior Managing Editor at Sage, and literally I manage. So I manage people, I manage journals. I also serve as editor of 2 of our open access journals, so I work in the open access team. And my day-to-day is spent a lot reviewing content, checking content papers in to see if they're appropriate for the journal, sending them out for peer review, making decisions on papers, things like that. So I do a little bit of everything. I wear many, many different hats. And so I was hoping today to kind of give you a sense of the resources that Sage does offer online, but also some kind of things that I as an editor look for, and hopefully can give some tips and hints for, making the peer review process just a little bit easier as an author. So I think in the links that Patrick shared, I shared a bunch of different things that are actually all part of Sage's Journal Author Gateway. The first link would have been to the actual main page, and there are a lot of resources in this website, most of which, I believe maybe all of them are all free, which is really great. There are some great videos about how to choose a journal. Also, just a kind of high-level overview of all the steps in the process going from submission to peer review, revision, acceptance, and publication online. There's also some great material to help you kind of decide if you want to publish in open access or not. Sage also offers a bunch of different choices across their journals. So we have about 1,000 journals to choose from, which is a lot. And some are purely open access, so they call those gold open access, and there is a fee in many cases associated with those to publish. This is the article processing charge, which is there to cover sort of all of the publication fees for us. And then a lot of the other journals also offer a second option, which is called Sage Choice, and in this scenario you can choose in a normal traditional non-open access journal whether or not you would like to publish open access, and it'll give you the sort of the options there. And in the case of many of the traditional journals, there are no fees, and this will be stated in the submission guidelines, or there might be page fees or figure charges. There might be charges for color figures versus black and white, that sort of thing. Our journals also vary in that a lot of them, the traditional journals, still do publish print issues as well as online, but most of our open access titles only publish online, so they're digital. And the great thing about that is they don't have word limits, figure limits for most of the article types, so it gives you a little bit more freedom to compose your research story, if you will. I also wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, from my perspective, I was going to go from sort of the different stages, from writing papers, submitting, that sort of thing, sort of what I look for as an editor. So step one is obviously finding a journal and submitting to a journal. And I know that that can be a very daunting thing because there's a lot of journals, there's tens of thousands of journals out there, and it's where do you begin? A lot of publishers, and I think there are even some great search tools out there, you can give them your paper, or put in maybe the title of your paper, and they'll give you recommendations for journals to go to. I also recommend talking to colleagues, or even just sort of looking at your favorite papers that you like to read, or papers maybe you're referencing in your own work to see where they're publishing, and you can check out those journals' websites to see what kind of articles they publish and if it fits with your needs. Sage also has a pretty neat feature, or it's also on the Author Gateway. It's called Sage Path, and this is our version of an article transfer service, and it's free to use, and you can submit to it directly through the website. So I think one of the links I included was to that. And what's really great about this service is that you can submit your paper, and you can answer you answer sort of a series of questions about your preferences for types of journals, whether it's open access or not, that sort of thing. And what we do internally is then help find journals at Sage that are a best fit for your work. So we want to make sure that your paper is going to the best journal, the best audience for your work. I do participate in this as an editor, so I get papers all the time that I can review and say, yes, this would be a great fit for my journal. Please, have it come in for peer review. So it's a really great, convenient service, and it's really fast. You get a response in a couple days. I have a bunch of notes here, so you'll have to forgive me. Another thing I kind of just wanted to touch on is the actual submission process. I know, like, as an author, being an author myself, I've published about a dozen papers. Submission guidelines can be overwhelming, sometimes frustrating, very detailed, and they're different for every journal. So every journal you go to, you're going to have to follow a slightly different submission process and form submission guidelines. The great thing about a lot of the Sage journals is we have really great detailed submission guidelines for each journal found on their sites. And they talk about, all the different aspects of what you need for each article type. So you can go there and look and see, okay, I'm writing a review article. I need to make sure I include this and this and this, or have my abstract look like this. If it's a research paper, what sections that they're looking for the paper.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Just about how to find that on the web page, and how can those guidelines differ, Jennifer? Can there be different styles required, or? Yeah,
so because we have so many different journals, there are slightly different variations for each journal. So if you wanted to know what the submission guidelines are, and I do not have an example up, you can simply go just to even Google and type, Sage and then the name of the journal. And it'll take you, the first result will probably be the link to the home page. And on the home page, most of the sites, it says submit your paper, or it'll say submission guidelines right on the front, is one of the columns. And so you're able to get to the submission guidelines very easily, or you can simply Google the journal name and submission guidelines and get the link directly to.
Let's just take a minute to look at that, since we're doing Put on Time. We've covered a lot so far. Let me go to where I have this pulled up, and I just Googled it like you suggested. Does everybody see now Sage Manuscript Submission Guidelines? Yes? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
And so this is the Journal Author Gateway. Is this at the right place, Jennifer?
This is the general submission guidelines that is part of the Author Gateway, and you can see there's a lot of different sections with a lot of different information. If you're interested in a specific journal, you would have to go to the journal's homepage. We can go to mine, for example, if you want to type in
Okay.
this. Yeah, go ahead and go to Google or
Gotcha.
and you can type in, so one of my journals is called Cancer Control. It's 2 words.
Cancer control.
And then Sage. Let's see what comes up.
Okay.
There it
This
is.
must be it, the first one. Now, the first couple links was from Google Scholar, I guess. Some of your articles are indexed in Google Scholar. Am I in the right place now?
You are in the perfect spot. So this is my journal's homepage. There's all kinds of information on our journal homepages, and they all look like this. They're all formatted the same. They share the aims and scope. If there's an article processing charge, you can see on the right side, my journal has one, the APC. And if you're interested in reading the submission guidelines, if you scroll back up slightly under Submit Paper, there.
Oops, I clicked too fast.
Nope,
Submission
no worries.
guidelines.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Sorry, I've got some Zoom pop-ups on top of everything, so my clicker is a little bit
No problem.
clicky. Okay, submission guidelines. Okay.
And so what I have for my journal, and this is for some journals, is these 9 sort of bulleted items where you can kind of go and do a quick check to make sure you've done all the things before submitting a paper. And if you keep scrolling, you'll see there's the same sort of broken down outline of what the submission guidelines contain. And these are all hyperlinked. So if you were to click on one, it would go to the section in the submission guidelines below.
Can I click on this one?
Absolutely. So there you
okay.
can. So it'll show you, what our journal's peer-reviewed policy is. So in my case, my journal is a double-blind peer review. Some of our journals do single-blind, which is where the reviewers know the author, but the author doesn't know the reviewers. In my case, the authors and reviewers don't know each other. They're blinded from each other. But there's also, I think that you have to scroll to the top. There you go. There's also a section for article types and descriptions for what kind of articles the journal publishes. Some journals have more detail on this than less. If you find that you do have questions, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, there is it's maybe hit page down or end, I'm not sure.
Oh,
or
I'm
that
sorry.
works.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
probably
very
end. Yeah.
there you go. You can see under further information who the contact is for the journal. So in my case, it's me. So if you had questions about publishing or submitting a paper to my journal, you would email me directly and ask your questions. Some journals do have a general email for the journal. So somebody different, maybe not the editor, will respond, but it could be the editor. It depends. Most of our journals are managed by external editors. So if you contact those, you're likely going to talk to a SAGE person. And since I'm internal, it just goes to me.
Okay.
And I should say, people do contact me. I appreciate it. They will write to ask about specific formatting questions before submitting. They'll ask if their paper topic is appropriate for the journal before submitting. And I think this is something that's pretty great about, I think, a lot of the SAGE journals, is that there is a pretty good, easy way to get in touch with somebody if you do have specific questions.
Okay. And Jennifer, I'd like to say just momentarily that we have resources on the library website for citation and learning about styles, and we have a couple different citation managers like Reference let's say Reference USA, that's something, RefWorks, and Zotero and others, Mendeley, that can help you to get your document into the style that's ready for submission. And you can ask for your librarian for help with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Thank you. That's awesome.
That was great. Thank you for doing that for me. I appreciate it. But the only other thing I wanted to say about the Journal Author Gateways, I really encourage people to take the time to kind of go through the different sections. It's very intuitive. There's a lot of videos. There is a how to get published course. We did a webinar earlier this year that you can watch. They had a great panel of external editors. So I think they got a lot of great questions through that they discussed. And yeah, so that's our Journal Author Gateway. It also has some, resources about what happens once your paper's been accepted and is published online, some tips for sharing your article to get more, viewers and hopefully more citations for you. So there's some great stuff there. I did, and I am conscious of time, just want to also say a little bit about sort of what to expect as an author going through the peer review process. So after your paper gets submitted, I know a lot of times it's a little bit of a black box. Your paper disappears for, you know, a couple weeks or a couple months, and then it comes back to you with comments. So a lot actually does go on, and there are a lot of us in Sage that sort of perform different roles. And so what happens with most papers when they first come in is they get sort of these basic checks that are done. So they'll check to make sure the formatting matches the journal submission guidelines. They'll make sure that it looks grammatically, you know, okay. So there's not too many grammatical errors going out when it goes out for peer review. They'll check if the appropriate funding information is present, ethics statements, if relevant, reporting information, you know, depending on the study type. So it's really important to check the submission guidelines and ask the questions to make sure you've completed all of that prior to submission, because a lot of times our staff ends up chasing people around to try to get this extra stuff before it even goes out for peer review. I know when I was in grad school, that was a huge thing for me. I was a perfectionist. I'd go line by line through submission guidelines just to make sure I wasn't missing anything so it could speed its way into peer review. So I do recommend it. And once that's happened, in most cases, the papers come to an editor. So like in my case, I'll check it for content, scope, make sure it looks appropriate for the journal, and then we'll send it to peer review. And at this point, the way my peer review works is I send it to one of 11 academic editors, or a few people that are internal that also have PhDs and masters in relevant backgrounds. And they will assign the papers to reviewers. So they'll find people in the research community, invite them to come review. And once we've gotten 2 or 3 reviewers' comments back, I can then go in and make a decision with the different editors and send the papers back with decisions to authors. I should say that the journal's time in peer review, this process can vary a lot, which I'm sure some of you have experienced. It can be anywhere from weeks to months. So I think a lot of times if you have concerns or questions about the time something's sitting in peer review, feel free to reach out using the contact information, either from the person who sent you the emails. I think sometimes it is an actual person, or it could be a general email. You can always use those to ask these questions, or contact the editors or whoever's listed in the further information in the submission guidelines. I get questions all the time about how papers are doing, what's the status, is everything okay, which is totally understandable. So you're always welcome to do that. And a lot of papers do go back for revisions. Very rarely do they get accepted first time around. But once they are accepted, they do go off to production, which is a whole nother team. And they do a lot of copy editing, special formatting before they send proofs. So this is the proofs that are what the paper is going to look like before it gets published for author approval. And then it can get published online, and then eventually, if relevant, into an issue. I do want to say one thing about proofs. I know I think we have a web-based system now for most journals, so you can actually go in and look at the paper and make minor edits directly in the site, and then this goes back to the production team, and they can fix everything before publishing. It's a great system, and I do recommend not waiting. So this is the one step I've seen a lot of authors, they will take their time, and this delays publication online. So if you're really eager to get it published, this is a great opportunity to make sure that gets done quickly and sent back to production. Does anybody have any questions about peer review or production, or what happens after a paper is accepted, or anything like that? No? Okay.
How do you become a peer reviewer?
Great question. So this really depends on the journal. If you are interested, in most cases, I would recommend actually trying to contact the editor. For really large journals, this probably won't work because they're very, very busy and might not have time to respond. In the case of my journals and one of our other big journals, which is Sage Open, it's a humanities social science journal, they actually have a workflow and instructions that talk about how to create an account in our peer review system so that we can actually find you. But most of the time, I think people do choose to reach out to editors directly. which I have happen all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Jennifer. If I'm a faculty member or advising a faculty member about finding a journal that would be a good fit for their research interests and their publication, then is the editor, I know you can look at the purpose and the scope of the journal in the submission guidelines, but is there any other way to discern your idea before you submit the paper, and then you wait a while and then they say, well, it's not a good fit for our journal? You know, what other guideline tips do you have for faculty in just finding the right journal?
So I think there's a few options, and I think one of the things I would recommend to start with is looking, at similar research and seeing where it's published and looking at those journals. And if you think that those journals might be possibilities, I think as an advisor, you probably could write to the editor and, share maybe the abstract of the paper and say, would this be appropriate for your journal? I know when I was in graduate school, that's what my faculty advisor did. He knew a few different journals he liked, but he didn't always know where was the appropriate destination for his, paper, that particular paper. So he would actually write and ask, hey, is this going to work here or not? And they give very honest feedback. I also have people that email me directly asking the same questions, because I agree that it's a hard thing to know. And so if you're able to contact an editor, I think that works really well. I do know also, I would recommend if where a lot of articles are published that you like, or again maybe are referencing in a particular paper, that might be a good sign that might be a good home for the paper. And as I said, I know Sage, we're working towards a journal recommender, and I think some other publishers already have journal recommenders, and so they're pretty accurate in providing some ideas for journals to look at. And also, if you really are unsure, like I said, Sage has Sage Path, which gives you access to sort of most of our journals, and it is not an automatic program. It is real people that run this service, so they do take a lot of time to make sure that the recommendations given are good recommendations, and in most cases are actually recommendations from the editors themselves that have looked at the paper already.
That's great to know. And sorry, I had the problem with my mute button. I think one challenge I see with faculty is that their research is in an interdisciplinary area, or it's a new emerging area. So that can make it hard to identify a journal that's the right fit, even given your strategy of looking at similar publications.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the nice thing is there are a lot of interdisciplinary journals. So they're very, very broad scoped and could be good homes for those kinds of papers. I gave Sage Open, that is an example of a very broad interdisciplinary humanities social science journal. So they cover every topic under the sun that's related to humanities social sciences. And I think that a lot of people choose that option for those kinds of papers.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, a couple of questions in the chat came up. One was, what about book reviews? Does Sage Publish encourage book reviews? And someone hoping to be able to find the acceptance rates by journal. Are those on the journal's webpage?
At the moment, the acceptance rates are not published on the journal sites. I think it's something we've discussed. I can't comment on whether or not it will happen. I've never had somebody ask directly, so by email. It's not something we're trying to hide. It's just, I think it's more of a logistics, like how we would actually be able to do it. And as I'm sure you know, the acceptance rates for different journals, it varies quite a bit. I think that the higher ranked journals are, so journals with higher impact factors probably do have lower acceptance rates, generally speaking. That would just be the way I would look at it. As far as book reviews go, I think that really depends on the journal. So if they do publish book reviews, it should be listed in the article types and the submission guidelines. So that was all I had. I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions.
Why don't we shift over to Kathleen and digital pubs, and then I think there'll be time for questions for the whole panel at the end, if there are more that come up for journals, and Kathleen will have time for questions. But thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And Kathleen.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kathleen Saylor. I am a field editor with Sage currently, but that is a relatively recent occurrence because prior to January, I was actually an acquisitions editor for the video editorial team. So my expertise really is in video, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit about some of our other online resources that we publish. That I know in the kind of feedback in advance, there are some questions about alternative publishing options to things like books and journals. So I'm going to try to delve into a little bit of that. So Sage Publishing, we've been publishing video for about 6 years now, and I'm sure, you know, many of you are used, especially in this current situation, current climate, used to kind of seeing video as a teaching tool, and may not have thought of it as a publishing option. But publishing video can be seen as a publication credit. And so I was just going to walk you through a little bit about how we go about identifying academics, but also don't want you to kind of be inhibited by thinking about publishing video with Sage. You can create video on your own too. So I can talk a little bit about that if anyone has any questions. But so when it comes to creating video at Sage, we really try to look at the discipline as a whole and come up with more curriculum mapped guidelines for the types of videos that we want to create. And we work with academic advisory boards to put that together. So in the early stages, if we know, for example, last year, we wanted to create a nursing collection. And so the first thing I did really was to kind of understand the scope of the discipline and identify key academics or practitioners who had subject area expertise in the subjects that we wanted to cover within nursing. And once I put together that academic advisory board, that's when we started to really curate the topics list that we knew we would cover. And video is a little bit different because we don't have that traditional submission pipeline that you might see in books or in journals. So if you're thinking about, you know, creating video or you want to get more involved in video, it's a little bit more ambiguous, I'm sorry to say, but it is still something where if it's something you're interested in, my first recommendation would be, just like journals or books, to do your research. So find out what publishers, first of all, are even doing video, because not all publishers create academic video. And then find out if they're publishing in the discipline that is your area of expertise. And once you've done that, you know, really just reaching out and finding an editor. Even if it's not the video editor, they'll likely be able to put you in contact with the right person. For Sage, as an example, like I said, we're not actually doing I suppose I can't say call for papers, but call for submissions for video. But that shouldn't stop you from reaching out and say, hey, you know, I've got this video that I've created, or I'm interested in creating video with you. And we do both ways. You know, we work with faculty who have already created video on their own. Perhaps you've worked with your video production team. I know MTSU has a video production program. And sometimes we have faculty who've already been teaching online and they've created their own videos, and they just want to get more exposure for those videos, get a publication credit with Sage, and we can work with you to do that. Likewise, perhaps you haven't created a video, but you have something, a research project or a case study that you've done that you know would translate well in video. That's an opportunity for you to reach out as well. So That's unfortunately not quite as streamlined as I mentioned. However, we do have some other online resources, and Sage Business Cases is a great example of that. I've popped in a number of links in the early part of the chat. And if you have any questions, I can go into this in a little more detail or connect you with the editor as well. But Sage Business Cases, like journals, are actually double-blind peer-reviewed. And so this is another great opportunity for publication that's a little bit different from books and journals. And we publish cases within business currently. We do have some publications, or case publications, sorry, in our Sage Research Methods product. But that is not currently accepting call for papers. So, but the process is very similar in that we've got author guidelines. I mentioned I popped the link in there for you that really outline, you know, what types of cases we're looking for, how long they should be, what elements you need to have to go.
May I share that, Kathleen?
Sure. Actually, let me pop it into, I'll pop it to you real quick.
Okay, I may be on the page.
There you go. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, the Business Cases team has put together a really great resource to kind of guide you through the steps. So it starts off talking about the types of cases that we publish, how long they should be, the general areas that we publish, and then it goes through the different elements, and it even gives you a really nice checklist of things that you might need to include.
Well, I really love this list of disciplines.
Yeah.
It's so broad. I can see so many applications to MTSU.
Yeah.
In these areas.
The
checklist you were mentioning?
Yep. And so it's a great way, especially if you're new to publishing, it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet and try something that's a little bit different from your research article. And then if you scroll all the way down,
okay, scrolling.
You actually have the review process, and it's on the, I think, second to last page. Right, yeah, right there. Okay. And so this, again, just kind of goes into a little bit of details, how you submit. It gives you the link. It talks you through the peer review process for the business cases, and gives you some specific context, just like in journals. You know, if you have questions, if you're not sure if this is the right fit, you can reach out to one of the editors. And then you've got the FAQs here at the bottom, and this, again, since I didn't publish business, I really wanted to highlight this as well. So if you have specific questions, these are a great place to go as well, to answer some of those. Okay,
and you know, the MTSU library does subscribe to the Sage Business Cases, so you can actually go and see ones that are already published.
And I would really recommend that. Just like when you're doing research for a journal or for a book, you want to publish with someone who is in the same, you know, vein as what you're looking to do. So if you're, you know, not publishing, or if you're not focused on business resources, perhaps doing business cases isn't the right fit. But, you know, maybe a different type of case publisher would be something more along the lines. So it's really important to do that research ahead of time, to find the right fit.
Okay. And for any of you that want to get to all of our Sage products, go to databases A to Z and then the letter S, and you'll see all of the access to this many Sage things that will be very fun to explore.
And if you
Sage Business Cases is there.
Yeah. And the other great thing is, even if you don't have the links, if you scroll to the bottom of the business cases page, all the way down,
scrolling.
We have information for authors right there, handy for you in the resource itself. And it contains all of the links that I just shared with you, as well as a toolkit for, you know, the formation of, and the, you know, format and all of those things. If you expand submission resources, it has that toolkit in there, and some information on some of the other authors we've published with. So a really great resource to help guide you through that process as well.
I have a question about, a lot of these business cases, are they co-authored? Like I could see someone partnering with somebody with a different skill set and co-authoring a case. Does that happen?
It does happen. I couldn't comment on how frequently, though I could find out for you. But it does happen. Much like in video, we do have colleagues who have worked together on a research project. You know, I filmed 2 nurses who'd done a case study together, and we did a dual video with both of them. So like video, like business cases and journals, you can have co-publishers, certainly, or co-authors, pardon me.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Kathleen?
The one last thing I might say, because I know it can feel a little, I don't know if esoteric is the right word, to publish with different types of, or to publish in different formats, because there's not, they're both new, right? Video is a very new resource in terms of academia, really, and thinking of it as an academic publishing option. But I would really encourage you to explore that more, because as we're moving to a more familiar online environment, and as we're moving more into digital natives as our primary student body, they learn in a multitude of methods. And so certain things work better in video, certain things work better in case. And so really thinking about what learning objectives, what your pedagogical goal is, or if it's really dissemination of research, really thinking those through will help kind of guide what type of format you want to publish in, not just what discipline, but what you want it to look like in the end. So video, online, research methods, case studies, it's really booming for us. And it's a fun new type of publishing to get into. So if you have any questions afterwards, even if it's not my area of expertise, but just for online publishing, we'll make sure to get you my email, and that way I can follow up with any of those as well. So.
Well, and you mentioned the curriculum mapping, and I'll say from my experience participating in collection development decision making at Walker Library, the SAGE content is very well developed. It maps on very well to across the university. And so I just encourage all of you to become SAGE users, as well as considering contributing and sharing your knowledge with others down the road.
All right, Patrick, back to you.
Sure. We'll always take a plug, Mary Ellen. Well, I'm happy to talk today about book publishing. We noted in the questions that people put into their registrations when they signed up that most people asked about book publishing, which is why I waited till the end. So you have to sit through the whole hour to get to the stuff that most people are here for, I guess. That's great. Like Kathleen, I am a field editor at SAGE. My primary work is with all of the digital materials that she just showed, and actually less so with books, but I know my way around the book world at SAGE and some other places. So I will talk about that. An awful lot of the stuff that I have to share, well, a good portion of it, pertains to book publishing generally at academic publishers, but I'll be sure to clarify when we're talking general and when we're saying, here's what you can expect at SAGE. In general, like any other publications, know your publisher that you're looking into. Look at their catalog, look at the books that you're reading and where you see your books fitting in, who is your work in conversation with and who publishes that, and target those publishers. So you really get to know what you're doing. But it's not, if somebody has to say, well, your book doesn't fit what we do, then you're not gonna kill anybody by that, but you're gonna save yourself some time if you start with somewhere that's likely to respond to what you do. That's your good first step. Browse their website then, not just for books, but for editors. And the one link that I shared, and pardon me if you hear an airplane flying over my head, is our list of book acquisition editors. They are kind of broken out by discipline, and then there's little chunks of sort of what they maybe focus on a little more specifically in publishing interests and that sort of thing. take a look at those, pick one, and really at Sage, the getting started in book publishing process is all about reaching out to an editor and starting a conversation. And the whole first chunk of the process that you can expect is going to be conversation with an editor. The one you contact might say, you know, actually, I think there's another editor who's going to be the way for you that is maybe more appropriate for this project. No acquisitions editors are trained in saying no directly. None of them are giving you the runaround if they do that. There actually is a better editor that's more suited to the project. That's a good thing. So, you know, don't take any of that as rejection, but then you're going to have a lot of conversation via email, via telephone conversations before things get solid. Conversations about your project and what you're looking for and what Sage can bring to it and what Sage would do with it. And it's going to be more than a few weeks of conversation. I mean, you'll be engaged and it's happening. You know progress is happening, but it's more than a few weeks before like a contract comes along and there's like a definite yes. It takes some time of kind of feeling out the idea from both perspectives. And it's important to remember that the author and the publisher both have a stake in publishing the book and in the idea, and that both parties, you know, bring an expertise to the table. So, you know, you're part of that conversation. Always, you know, definitely see it as a conversation between equals that's going on, and ask. You're highly encouraged by all of our editors to ask everything. Ask, how long is this conversation going to go on before we get to it? And, you know, you'll get the straight answers. Ask what the whole process looks like. Ask how long reviews take, whatever it is you want to know. Ask if you can choose the cover art. Maybe you can, but if you want to know, if you're interested, bring it up, ask about it. It's all pretty open to negotiation. And this is part of why there's such a long period before any sort of contract gets written up. And when the contract happens, ask about that too. Delve into every detail and ask. And remember that you can always walk away. When you are first reaching out to an editor at Sage, some places, I can speak from experience, a lot of people for today's sessions ask specifically about an edited volume. I know from experience, wonderful publishing house Routledge has a template for you to fill out of who's contributing and what's a summary of each one of their pieces and what's the big picture, and it's a form. And that's fine, that's the way they go. We don't, we do this conversation thing, which we think is better. So it works for us, and we get a better sense, we think, of where you're at. It also means you don't, you know, if that form is incomplete, they're going to say, this isn't ready, go away until you are. Come to us with your idea. And, you know, you don't have to have all of your contributors to that edited volume lined up, especially with like full summaries and writing samples and everything. Come with an initial proposal. And that's, you know, a 1 to 2 paragraph email that is going to need to state the idea a bit, come in with a sense of how your book fills a need or an interest in the marketplace. You know, it is a bit, it's on the author to convince the publisher. You sell yourself as well as you sell your idea. That's what it is. And so you want to do almost a brief literature review that says, you know, here are the books in the field. Here's how what I'm writing is going to fit an empty spot in that field. You know, I'm talking about the thing no one else has written the book about, which can be very narrow. It can be very defined. And I think we've all probably written literature reviews, and you know that's what it's all about. You're framing out what's the negative space that you're going to fill. That also pertains for an editor to who's the market, who you're writing for. Is there an interest in this book that you can point to in some way and demonstrate? A big chunk of our publishing is textbooks, courses being taught for the textbook you're writing, and it really can be as interesting as searching other universities' course catalogs. And then being able to say there's lots of courses going on in this subject. I don't know what they're requiring those students to read because there's no textbook in that area, or even no book. But that's the case. Oftentimes the hot topics in academia, they might be coming up at conferences and journal articles and courses taught and conversations you're having, on discussion boards and listservs. The books are going to come later because it takes longer for everybody to do it. If you can say, this is something that lots of people in the field are interested in, but there's no book, that's great for you. My dissertation advisor used to say your objective is to prove that this is a great idea and that you're the person to write it. So you also, in doing that, are selling yourself as expert. That doesn't need to be your life's bio in the ever really. I was going to say in the beginning, in that first contact, but who are you, and what makes you the person for this book? Is this a good place to look? I don't know. Oh, actually, you see a chat question. I'm going there. At what stage do you send a proposal? Should you speak to an editor first? Sure, speak to an editor first. I wouldn't start with like a full, elaborate, multi-page proposal, but like I said, the short email, 1 or 2 paragraphs. That's like, hey, I got a book idea. You seem to be the editor. Here's the concept, and here's why this book needs to be written. Start with that. That's going to be enough. I mean, your editor will then grab onto that conversation. Like I said, they might go to a different editor, but that's for the best.
Do we want to look at a page? I was looking through these links to see which link to click on.
Oh, do you have it? Mine is the last in the list that I sent.
This might be the wrong one. It says Article Transfer Hub.
Yeah, no, not that. It's called, the heading is books, and then it says acquisitions editors.
Oops, trying to get off of the share screen.
Maybe before that comes up, I did want to mention in these early stages that as you're researching publishers, our market that we feel like we know how to work with and get books to is academics, researchers, faculty members. We're not publishing bestsellers on the books at Barnes & Noble, unless we get lucky, once in a while something crosses over, but that's not where we're aiming. It's just not what we do, and other publishers do. So, I mean, note, one of the things we bring is good publishing channels into academic research publishing.
I might have gone there.
So that's not the link I said. So college publishing, they're textbooky, which is fine. Textbooks are a huge deal that we do. If that's your interest, I mean, just note, can I help you? Books might be it. I doubt it, though. I can share my screen, too. I have the link if you want it.
Oh, you can? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, well, if I can. I have clicked on it, but I don't know if I can share screen. I'm going to try. You might have to enable me. Oh, I have a button. I am sharing screen. Here we go.
Yay. You did it. Great.
Okay. All right. So this is in the link that it's in chat under books. This is the link that's in the Word document that went around. It's directly to this right here, acquisitions editors. So it's not the main page of our book publishing, but it's the page where you really want to start. This is your first step, is to cruise through these fine people, read their blurbs, and pick out what seems like the best place for you to start. We can pop around here and find other dandy, useful information. We try to not hide our process. It's right there. Interested in publishing with us? Contact an acquisitions editor directly. Reach out and make that contact. And if you do that, it's going to take you right to the acquisitions editor page. Here it comes. Yeah. Find your friends there.
Are you sharing your screen? Because I just see a picture of you.
Am I not sharing my screen?
No.
I'm
not seeing your screen anymore.
I still see it.
Oh, that was me. I'm sorry. Oh, I guess there's a button that I messed up with the pictures, the tiles.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, Patrick.
No, that's perfectly fine. Oh, and I'm pushing the time if there's going to be questions. I was just going to say, you can, I mean, I'll tell you, the benefits of publishing with Sage does include this forward your proposal. It has a handy list of things, right, that are good to be aware of when you submit something, but don't feel like you need to know these in great detail, how many pages your book is going to be at this point, or even your schedule. Start with your project description and your unique value proposition. Begin there, and that's going to cap. No one's going to say, well, great idea, but they proposed 501 pages and we only want 500. That's not going to happen. So just pitch your good stuff, and that's where it really begins. I wonder if, I see 7 minutes left on our time, if maybe opening up for questions is a good way to go. There's more I can say, but it seemed like people's interest was in how do we get interested in this? Things like reviews, there's going to be peer reviews, just like with journals. Again, like with journals, take all of that as it's useful. it's not the end of the world, and those ideas are coming from experts. In general, the best response is to see what ideas you can incorporate that you feel are going to help it, and be prepared to defend if you're rejecting their ideas. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to take in every peer reviewer's comments, but you might want to have to say, actually, I don't think that fits what I'm doing here, and just know how to say that.
Patrick, Lauren Rudd asks, what about digital textbooks?
Yeah. So the same both with textbooks and with the edited volumes and things people are proposing. We do all those types of books digitally. That'll be something that your editor is going to suggest. If you're coming in with an idea for a digital textbook, that's great. You might get an editor who says, actually, this seems like it shouldn't be digital. Now, with textbooks, everybody's going online and nobody's buying physical textbooks. So I think you'll be okay there. But with other types of books, an editor may say, this would be a great digital project. I know someone in the pre-questions asked about links to like historical, like musical performances for what sounds like a fantastic project. Please propose it. Maybe that's a digital project where those links to the like recordings and videos of performances can happen, like right there within the digital project.
Patrick, I have a question, and this pertains to that email correspondence we had with Dr. Levine. Who's responsible for getting copyright permissions for any content that they're sharing that may be copyrighted by others?
Yeah, so that is, and I think it's going to be the same for journals too, but yeah, that's going to be the author's responsibility. They'll have to track it down. They'll have to track down who owns the copyrights, who owns the material, and then contact them and see what their terms are.
Does Sage provide like a boilerplate request form or anything like that that authors can use as a starting place?
Yeah, some of it is not always really best to use as the starting place. If you just present yourself as a scholar who's working on this book or textbook, whatever type it is, and you want to use it, we have lots of good stuff on why our stuff is fair use and why you shouldn't have to pay for it. You might still have to, though.
I should also say that you do run into those copyright questions in digital products as well. And so oftentimes we, especially with video, try to stay away from figures that you haven't created yourself. But we do have some participants or some contributors who, have a relationship with whoever published the figure or whatever. And so we can get, permissions from them to use it in a video or something. So there is some support from the editorial team, at least in guidance, in feedback, I think we need to, look into the copyright concerns about this particular piece of your proposal, or, maybe you should talk to this person. So there is support, but yeah, because we understand, especially in video, that sometimes those figures can be really helpful for illustrative purposes. But yeah, so.
Lauren also asked if there is some information about submitting a digital project, and there really isn't. Again, just start with that editor, and you'll get all the information via that conduit. We publish digital projects, I think, is the information that I get. So, but you'll start in that same way.
And likewise, you know, we didn't really talk a lot about the structure of the editorial teams. But we, as Sage, I can't speak for necessarily other publishers, but I know at Sage we really try to have at least some, you know, connection between nursing journals and nursing video, or you know, the disciplines across content types. So if you reach out, and I'm trying to give options, since, you know, video, it's harder to know who to reach out to for publishing, or if you're interested in creating a video. So even if you reach out to, you know, your nursing journal editor and say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this either as a journal or a video, you know, do you have anyone on the video team that I could talk to? We talk to each other, and we can put you in touch with the right people, even if just like they'll suggest another journal, they'll suggest another content type, if that makes more sense.
Kathleen, a question?
Yep.
Okay.
Robert, feel free to email me directly, and we can talk about it more. Yeah, happy to.
I guess we will ask Mary Ellen to disseminate contact information, because I don't, yeah. Thanks, Mary.
Yes, I'll be glad to follow up my earlier email with the file attachment that Patrick sent. Thank you. You all received the attachment with today's links, and I will be glad to send out all the contact information for presenters. So if you'll share that with me, Patrick, I will disseminate that. Thank you.
Get that right after we're done.
Well, thanks. Big applause for our presenters. This is really fantastic. Such a great support for our organization, and we look forward to partnering with you, not only as happy subscribers to your wonderful databases, but contributing to those databases too. And thanks for all your good work at Sage. Great partners for MTSU, and in so many ways. And so glad that you can join us today, and so glad you're doing well, and we'll be in touch and be working together further. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Mary Ellen.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.